Before we go any further, I'd like to show you an example of the colour range that I'm wanting to achieve for this print. This is something I found on Pinterest, and although I probably will make my foreground a little bit darker than that, this gives me the colours that I'd like to see in my print. It's what inspires me. I did have it in mind to do this print before I came across this picture, but this one just sort of gelled my mind as to what I wanted to achieve. So I've got my paper cut, and I've got 8 sheets of the Zirkle Smooth, and you can feel one side is smoother than the other, and that's the size I'll be putting my print on. I also have 2 sheets of the Awagami bamboo paper, one of which I'll run through with the press and the other one I'll hand rub just to see how they turn out. This is a thinner paper and it might work as well. I know this works well as going through the press. I also have 2 other sheets of paper. The Okawara Select from the Awagami factory. This is a 51 GSM paper, so quite thin. Actually, it's 51 grams per metre, so that's, yes, that's it. And this one is Shirakawa paper, 100 grams as well. Well, it's 100 grams, so this is a little thicker than this one, and I'll be very interested to see how they go with taking the amount of ink. This is an experiment. It may not work, but I have the paper as part of a sample set. And for people who don't have an additioning press, a relief press or etching press, this may well be the answer to this problem, because it may well work with a hand rubbing. So we're ready to start the first layer of ink, and I'll begin with the ink extender. And I'll need a lot of that because I don't want a lot of colour. I want it to be very faint. And then I'll be adding a very small amount of the Prussian blue, or PMS 295. And amount of violet, because they're not just blue clouds, they are purple in them as well. I used to do this with black as well, but I decided that the black can be very dominant and I really didn't want it to be, didn't look right. This looks pretty dark. I think I'm going to end up having to heavily dilute this, so I'll put some of that aside and get another load of the extender out. I could keep this for the next layer, probably the one after that too, so I'll take a bit more away. So you need to mix it well on the glass plate with the palette knife until it is well incorporated. Still looking rather dark. Take some of that off. So now we come to putting a bit of a masking tape on the dark line. This doesn't really matter that much, but it's good to keep it clean. So once the ink's on there, it doesn't come off. So this is the first side. This is the bit we carve first. It has the most woodblock area, and that will be white. So we start rolling this out. Till it's evenly spread over the plate and evenly over the roller. You hear the sound it's making. It's a good sound for the ink that's well spread. You just have to turn the air conditioner off because it makes a lot of background noise. So inking up. This does look fairly dark, but we'll give it a try. I'll end up diluting it even further. That blue is a very strongly pigmented ink. So now we come to the next critical part, and that's getting the print registered when you ink. So I lay it in this block, in this hole, and I push it to the corner. So it's pushed this way and pushed that way. I then take a sheet of the paper and push it into the corner here. You can see the grotty marks where my fingers go every time, and I'll lay it along that long line there. Settle it down. Now I always cover it with another piece of paper just to protect the roller. So put that on and I'll run it through. I have only just set the press up, so it looks like it needs a fair bit of adjustment to get it to even. Too much. Back again. There are relief printing presses that actually come down flat on your print, but this is what I have, so this technique's been adapted for that. So I'll just check. Could do with a little bit more pressure here. Run it through again and back. So let's lift up and reveal. Okay. A little bit more ink and a bit more pressure. This is the first one. It's often a bit more faint because that's had, you know, there's no ink in there, so the wood absorbs some. I'm actually going to dilute this. This is too dark for what I want, way too dark. So I'll dilute it heavily and we'll do another run. So I've diluted the ink 4 times, and I also added a little bit of white ink, which sort of you would think you wouldn't have to, but I just couldn't get it to be pale enough. That I only added the tiniest little bit of that blue, but it was very intense, and even as I kept diluting, I kept finding that it was still too dark. This is the regression, that's the previous print. That's the one before that, which actually looks a bit like that one. So this is why it's called a proofing run, because you're getting it worked out the way you want it to be. I'm now going to print the bamboo paper. Treat it exactly the same as the other one. Put it in, make sure it's well into the corner and along the edge. Cover it. Run it through. Okay, now you see I've got a lot of blotchy patches here. When I clean the plate back, that will disappear. This is a proofing run. This is where you work out whether what you're doing is right. But that's not what I want, despite it being cloud, so I'll make sure that that doesn't happen when I run the print through as a final run. Now we come to the hand rubbing, and I'll start with the Origami Bamboo 110 GSM. Same treatment as before. Put it on, but instead of running it through the press, I rub it with the Baren over and over. You can see the ink starting to come up through the areas slightly. You need to make sure you focus on the edges and the corners. And then we'll lift it up and see how it looks. Not bad, actually. Quite passable. I'll ink up again and we'll do it for the second and third bits of paper. Shirakawa. Now this paper's A4 size, so it's not quite the right size. That means it won't be nicely on there, but this is an experiment, so I'm going to go with the same place. Normally I'd redefine the area to lay it, but I'm happy with this. This is not a print that I can't make an addition. This is an experiment. So already I can see the ink through the through the paper, keeping the barons flat so you don't dig in. Pretty good. Now see, I've got a few tiny little marks in here, which I will take away. Overall, I'm quite pleased with how this is coming up. And we'll go on to do the third one. This is the same size, and obviously I'm using the smooth side. The other side has a little sticker on it, which is not what I want, but this is a sample piece. Lay it down. This is 51 GSM, so getting thinner. This should take it up beautifully. This is ideal for hand rubbing prints, but how it will stand up to 5, 6 more layers of ink is what we're working on. I know it will print well like this, but will it stay good? Beautiful. Okay. This is the inking plate after I've finished all my additions. You'll see this is the final colour that I ended up with. I will discard this. And we have here my progressions. So that was after I'd added white, but it was still too dark. That was the 3, 4, 5 dilutions. This was probably even going to be too strong for the final colour of cloud, but I'll scrape all this together and wrap it in a piece of parchment baking paper and into a plastic bag, and then I'll get that back for the next layer. In the meantime, I'll clean this all off and the roller, and then I think because I can, I will do the next layer of colour and show you how that worked out. What we want is this, a bit of this, a bit more of that, and some more of the extender. It still looks a bit dark. I think I've got enough ink on here to do quite a few additions. The parchment paper is the latest thing I've found that keeps the ink good, stops it from drying out, and I can reuse it as long as I don't leave it too long. Now, I said I was going to clean the ink off this, which I'll do now. This is a mess, even though it's a dark colour, it probably wouldn't show up. I think it's best if we don't have it. Now we can see we've got this line here where I want to mask, so I will put mask across here like that and ink all of this up. See, I don't mind moving the residue of the last colour in. It's important to mix this well and ink the roller up evenly and ink the plate up evenly. It's not taking so well because it's a bit covered in the Turks that I just wiped it down with. Not a great idea. I'll get a grotty rag, wipe it back, and we'll try again. Make sure you evenly ink the block. Try not to stop and start, run it backwards and forwards. Many times as you think is necessary. Okay. Time to take it off. So I've run that next colour through, and this is what we've got. I'll probably make it a little bit darker, but just wanted to show you an example of how it's starting to look. Normally I wouldn't do 2 runs in one day, I would leave it between, but with only 2 layers the ink absorbs. Once you get past 2 layers the ink doesn't dry and it starts to pull off. One layer will pull another layer off. It's better if it's left 24 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and do the remainder of this print run, including the hand rub ones, and then we'll put the 2 side by side and see how they turn out. So here we have the hand rubbed prints, second layer. This is the Awagami 110 bamboo paper, and as you can see it's not printed particularly well. I did this at the end of the print run and there may have been not enough ink there, but if you had more ink it would work out better. You can also see that with the hand rubbing I've actually gone into those hollowed out spaces and inked up areas I don't want inked. You see what I was talking about before about clearing them out. So this is the second one I did on the 51 GSM paper, which actually turned out very much nicer, apart from a little area there that didn't work out so well. You need to watch out for little blobs on you of ink. But it being finer paper, it's been pushed into the grooves a lot more. The press goes over the top really smoothly, but hand rubbing is very easy to go in. So I've cleared some of this out. This is what you need to make sure you do. Clear it all out. And then I printed on the 100 GSM paper. And I've still got some left, so more work is needed, but you can see how it's cleared out a bit better. So once all that's gone, this will look a lot nicer. These are proof runs. I'm not using them for anything, so they are experimental. But so far, this is by far the nicest print. Unfortunately, it's an off-white paper, so the whites aren't particularly white compared with the others. But it's quite good. I'll put the name of this paper up on the PDF sheet. Now in the previous film clips you will have heard the noise of the air conditioner running. My apologies, it's very hot up here and I forgot to turn it off, but now I'll finish this for the day and tomorrow I'll show you the next layers of ink after we've finished. Before I do that, this was the last one that I ran through the press. This is the press one and I'm quite happy with this. We've already got 1, 2, 3 tones because we've got darker areas over cleared areas. So you've got actually 3 tones of colour in there already apart from the white. We need to clear out more areas, which I will do when I've turned my air conditioner back on. I'm just showing you this because this is the rack that I put my prints on to dry. It's part of an old dishwasher rack. Some people have elaborate things with pegs, but this does me fine, and it sits in this north-facing window, which in the southern hemisphere is where your sun comes in, and the ink dries really nicely most years round. Sometimes a bit slower when it's overcast and not particularly warm, but in the middle of winter the sun beams in, drying it well. In the summer it's just hot and it dries well.